is to inform you about the danger we are in now. The elite governs every aspect of our lives, also the information we get, and they depend on a cooperation to connect all industries in the world to serve their interests. This is done through the World Economic Forum, among others, a very important organization. Every year in Davos, the CEOs of big corporations meet national leaders, politicians and other influential parties like UNICEF and Greenpeace. In the supervisory board of the WEF is former President Al Gore, our own Minister Kaag, Fijke Sijbsma, chairman of the Royal Dutch State Mines, and the commissioner of DNB, the Dutch bank. Christine Lagarde, chairwoman of the European Central Bank. Also politician Vert Grapperhaus' son works for the WEF. Wikipedia says that the annual fee for members is €X. But over half of her budget comes from partners who pay the cost for politicians who otherwise could not afford membership. Wikipedia also mentions this. According to critics, the WEF is for rich businesses to do business with other businesses or with politicians. For most members, the WEF would support personal gain instead of being a means to solve the world's problems. Why would there be many world problems if the industry leaders, bankers and politicians from 1971 onwards have gathered every year to solve the world's problems? Isn't it illogical that after 50 years of meetings between environmentalists and the CEOs of the most polluting companies, nature is gradually doing worse, not better? That those critics are right is clear when we look at the main partners that together make up more than half of the budget of the WEF. Because these are BlackRock, the Open Society Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and many big companies from which Vangaurd and BlackRock own the stocks. Chairman and founder of the WEF is Klaus Schwab, a Swiss professor and businessman. In his book The Great Reset, he writes about the plans of his organization. The coronavirus is, according to him, a great opportunity to reset our societies. He calls it Building Back Better. The slogan is now on the lips of all globalist politicians in the world.
Historical moment, a crucial moment to rebuild the future, to reset our policies.
We also want to work together on building back better.
I call it Build Back Better.
But the COVID-19 pandemic can also be a moment for resolving long-standing conflicts and addressing structural weaknesses.
It's certainly a major crisis, but it also offers us a unique opportunity.
4 sets of priorities can guide the response to build back better.
To build back a better world.
But also to build back better.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
And achieve the Sustainable Development Goals.
Our old society must switch to a new one, says Schwab. The people own nothing but work for the state to have their primary needs met. The WEF says it's necessary, for the consumption society the elite forced upon us is not sustainable anymore. Schwab says in his book that we will never return to the old normal. And the WEF published a video recently to make clear that by 2030 we will own nothing, but we will be happy. You probably heard of the New World Order. The media wants us to believe that this is a conspiracy theory, yet it has been talked about by leaders for decades. George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton and Nelson Mandela, but also world-famous philanthropists like Cecil Rhodes, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger and even George Soros.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
The UN presented in 2015 her controversial Agenda 2030. It is almost identical to the Great Reset of Klaus Schwab. The UN wants to make sure, as does Schwab, that in 2030 poverty, hunger, pollution and disease no longer plague the earth. Sounds nice, but wait till you read the small print. The plan is that Agenda 2030 will be paid by us, the citizens. Just like they ask of us now to give away our rights for public health, they will ask us to give away our wealth to battle poverty. These are no conspiracy theories. It is on their official website. It comes down to this. The UN wants taxes from Western countries to be split by the mega corporations of the elite to create a brand new society. The new infrastructure because fossil fuels are gone in 2030. For this project, the UN says we need a world government, namely the UN itself. The UN agrees with Schwab that a pandemic is a golden chance to accelerate the implementation of Agenda 2030. It is worrisome that the WEF and the UN openly admit that pandemics and other catastrophes can be used to reshape society. We must not think lightly about this and do thorough research. On Friday, October 18, 2019, months before the pandemic was announced, a gathering was held in the Pierre Hotel in New York City. It was a meeting for very important persons. Present were politicians, highly credited health experts, and pharmacologists. The goal of the gathering was the simulation of a worldwide pandemic. Could be a coincidence, right? But as an example, they used the coronavirus. The simulation covered how the virus would develop and how it could only be detained if people cooperated in industries, governments, and government agencies. Again, a new world order to save us. Is it surprising when I tell you that this gathering, Event 201, was organized by the World Economic Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Johns Hopkins Institute? This is no conspiracy theory. Look on the official website of Event 201. At this point you may not be surprised anymore that the Robert Koch Institute, just like any other public institute, is closely connected to Gates' WHO and that it created a similar simulation in 2012. Just like in Event 201, they took a coronavirus as an example. In this simulation, the starting point was a food market in Southeast Asia. A coronavirus would jump from an animal to a human. In the simulation, it takes some weeks for the Chinese to discover the virus. In this way, it can spread all over the world. A simulation is made of the next 3 years of lockdowns, destroyed economies, and the impacts on society, riots and protests included. I won't go into the details, look it up on the website of the German government. Lastly, I would like to show you part of a talk of virologist Mark van Ranst which he held on January 22, 2019 in Chatham House. The Chatham House organization is financed by the elite corporations and also by the Gates Foundation. This is an important non-profit in London where important figures gather to talk about the world's problems. The Chatham House Prize was given to Hillary Clinton, Melinda Gates and John Kerry. During the talk, our own Ab Oosterhuis is in the front row. Van Ranst explains how he misled the people during the swine flu. He triggered fear by death numbers without context and media manipulation. He laughs as he tells how he made sure that the vaccines of the pharmaceutical companies he was working for then were accepted by many fearful people.
To tell you about my experiences being the crisis manager, the flu commissioner for Belgium and highlighting the communication aspects there. And then you have one opportunity to do it right. I mean, day one is so important. In day one, you start your communication with the press, with the people, and you have to do it right. I mean, you have to go for one voice, one message. In Belgium, they chose to appoint a non-politician to do that. I mean, I have no party affiliations, and that makes things a little bit, at that time at least, a little bit easier, because you're not attacked politically, majority, minority. That doesn't come into play, and that was a huge advantage. The second advantage is that you can play in Brussels the complete naive guy, and get a lot more done than you would otherwise be able to do. You have to be omnipresent that first day or the first days, so that you attract the media attention. You make an agreement with them that you will tell them all, and if they call, you will pick up the phone. When you do that, then you can profit from these early days to get complete carpet coverage of the field, and they're not going to search for alternative voices there. And if you do that, that makes things a lot easier. And then you have to say, okay, well, we will have H1N1 deaths. Of course, that would be unavoidable. I used there Sir Donaldson's quote, where he said that in the UK, by the peak of the epidemic, 40 people would die per day at the end of the summer. So 62 at that time million people in UK, 40 deaths a day. I worked it out for Belgium. That would be 7 deaths a day at the peak of the epidemic. I used that in the media. 7 Belgian flu deaths per day at the peak of the epidemic would be realistic. That is true in every year, even interpandemically. That is very, very conservative. However, talking about fatalities is important, because when you say that, people say, wow, what do you mean? People die because of influenza? And that was a necessary step to take. And then, of course, a couple of days later, you had the first H1N1 death in the country, and the scene was set and it was already talked about. And then you had to pick who is going to be vaccinated first. And then, well, women and children first, whatever. I mean, risk groups, they were important. And then I misused the fact that the top football, soccer clubs in Belgium inappropriately and against all agreements vaccinated they made their soccer players priority people. So I said I can use that. Because if the population really believes that this vaccine is so desirable that even the soccer players would be dishonest to get their vaccine, I said, okay, I can play with that. So I made a big fuss about this. This is Vangaurd is raving mad. But it worked.
We could talk for hours about the virus of which the survival rate is 99.98% and about the incomprehensible rules that destroy our society. Millions of entrepreneurs are broke. Countless people died in loneliness, in care homes, separated from their families. This is no life. But we know enough facts now that place the corona rules in a much clearer perspective. The perspective of the elite. Big BlackRock and big Vangaurd do not benefit from borders, import taxes and real diversity. Only by means of fear and media manipulation can they contain us. The elite's not going to cure us from the diseases we got from their toxic foods or from the environmental pollution. If we did not get sick, the pharmaceutical industry would collapse. Nothing sells better than fear is the slogan of virologists like Vangaurd. You're going to be surprised, like I was, that we have often been warned.
I think we're being run by maniacs. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, I think they're all insane. But I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. That's what's insane about it.
With this video, I reach out and hope to bridge the ever-growing gap between us.